What's up guys, that got the pencil here, and I've waited long enough. Spoilers for the entirety of the Overhaul arc. I gave y'all time. The arc finished airing over half a year ago. The arc in the manga concluded over 3 years ago now. It is time. Night-Eye's death was garbage and Night-Eye as a character was pointless, and let's talk about why. Now, I was initially going to talk about Night-Eye's death alone, and why it was a terrible writing choice, and overall just devalues the concept of killing a character while ripping away the shock value of other possible character deaths. But I'm working on a video to talk about how death is being pretty overused in modern media nowadays anyway. So let's talk about Night-Eye's failure as an entire character. Let's begin with time. Night-Eye lasted 37 chapters within the manga. And I can tell you, he did not appear in all those chapters. I'm talking about his debut to his death. And in some of those chapters which he did appear, it was for flashbacks. Now, am I saying you cannot get connected to a character in 37 or less chapters? No, people can get connected to a character within a panel. A person can get connected to someone off of concept art. But I'll tell you something that I found. It's highly unlikely for people to get connected to characters with little screen time. Little time at all. The longer a character is exposed to a reader or a viewer, the more likely they are going to become attached to the character. It is why typically a main character has the most people connected to him. They are the main character and thus they get most of the screen time. Thus it is easy to build a connection to them, even accidentally. This is the case for side characters too, as the more prominent ones are more well known and more well liked and more likely to be remembered. Now, okay, I explained that, but what am I actually talking about? I'm talking about how Night-Eye had no time to receive any meaningful connection to the characters, and not to talk of the readers. Night-Eye had so much tell and not enough show. Outside of his fight with Midoriya, his intern, the two rarely interacted. Outside of a few panels, Night-Eye and Togata rarely interacted. Outside of flashback, All Might and Night-Eye rarely interacted. And that's really it outside of Bubble Girl, who he seemed to interact with the most. Night-Eye, likely accidentally, was sort of a free, floating rowboat in the ocean full of battleships. Sure, you knew the rowboat was there, but it wasn't doing anything. Sadly, you cannot blame the fact that Night-Eye was a newer character for this one. You had character juggernauts in this arc like Togata, Overhaul, Fat Gum, and even to a degree, Eri. Why did Night-Eye suffer so heavily? I don't really have an answer. I didn't write the manga. I think Horikoshi just didn't know what to do with him. By introducing the threat of Overhaul so quickly, he shot the arc into motion before any character set up for Night-Eye specifically could be done. Any interactions could be shown. And then, he failed to let Night-Eye interact with any real characters once the invasion part of the arc began. He was with a whole bunch of nameless cops, neither of his interns, neither of his subordinates, and none of the actual relevant characters. And, if I'm being honest with you, I don't really understand why. Night-Eye felt like he was supposed to be an interesting mentor character. Kakashi, a Jiraiya, an All Might, a Dr. Zeno, all characters that will teach the main character something, and then maybe move out of their life or become a mainstay in it. He was literally Midoriya's next internship. Like the next Gran Torino, Midoriya's next teacher, who knew about the history of One for All, could help Midoriya learn about the dangers of sacrificing himself like All Might, and was also an All Might superfan like Midoriya. You literally could not make a better mentor for Midoriya outside of All Might himself, and All Might is Midoriya's mentor, and yet Night-Eye was barely used. Why? Because of lack of time. Horikoshi has always had pacing issues, but it's never been more relevant than here, where he introduces a character with crazy amounts of potential in regards to a mentor-student relationship with the main character, in regards to him being an interpersonal relationship with major characters in the world, and just in regards to holding an interesting place in the narrative due to the time period Night-Eye originates from. And what does Horikoshi do with all that? Nothing. 3 short fights. A quirk that gets proven useless, and a failed execution that lost all impact due to the delay of the event. In short, Night-Eye had too little time to do anything of worth. Whether it be feat-wise, or interaction-wise, or character-wise, or even in death, Night-Eye was not given enough time to do anything. But let's attack a different problem now. Night-Eye's character. What character? No, I'm actually asking. I'm at a blank point. What is his character? I'm kidding for the most part. He has a good backstory. He's a serious man who is an All Might superfan with the power to see the future who likes jokes. Alright, character done. Now that's the issue. We have a good backstory that does affect Night-Eye to this day, and I will praise that, but he has very little outside of that. His interactions with other characters, the few he has, do little if anything to establish his stated beliefs. He does a lot of talking rather than showing or doing. A lot of his character even falls to be a little bit contradictory. He's supposed to support joy and smiles and happiness and personality, but he's typically dry and logical even to his own interns, the people he's trying to influence to be like that. He hates that Midoriya became the next successor of One for All, and thinks that he's too reckless, just like All Might was, but rather than groom him to be better than All Might, if not for Midoriya's own accidental impressing of him, Nighteye would have even taken Midoriya under his wing. He would have let the One for All candidate go, especially when he thought the One for All candidate was an unfit one. What kind of sense does that make for a character that is established to be logical and forward thinking? You know, literally seeing the future. I don't get it. It just doesn't make sense. And the thing about Nighteye is that due to his lack of time, his character had to be told to us more than shown to us. Honestly, Nighteye does so little in terms of character that I can barely quantify him as one, which is sad for a character that was supposed to rip emotions out of me with their death. Now, let's address his second biggest failure. His quirk. Well, dare I say that Foresight is one of the most useless quirks in the entire series. Yes, I am saying that, because it is. Honestly, it has one job, to tell Nighteye the future, and it doesn't even do that properly 100% of the time. I think Foresight falls down to something that is not truly its own fault though. It's a quirk that is inherently too powerful for the narrative that is set in by the writer who made it. A quirk that is very similar in vein to the quirk of erasure. If used properly and deemed effective, the narrative would snap in half if either Foresight or erasure were used properly. And that's the main issue. That is why Foresight is used in such negligible and pretty much worthless situations. Fighting Midoriya, finding Ares' caretaker off a gamble, deeming that All Might would die, only for All Might to still be alive, and determining that Midoriya would die, only for Midoriya to live. Foresight has been proven right twice. One for a short-term, negligible fight that doesn't make sense for Nightaye's character within the narrative, and a slightly longer term in finding Ares. That's it. Foresight was hyped up by All Might to never be wrong, only for it to be proven wrong in a pivotal situation, not once, but twice, and yet to be proven right or wrong, long term technically, because I'm assuming All Might was supposed to die in his rematch with All for One, but he still didn't. If All Might dies to a villain in the future, then I'll return to this and give credit, but for now, Foresight is batting 50-50 and coin tosses aren't the best when trying to predict the future, last I checked. So, Nighteye fails even with his own quirk, which is an amazing concept, but like I said, it's just too strong for the narrative and kind of writing My Hero Academia has. Oh, yeah, and I'm also going to insult his design real quick, don't mind me. Yeah, there's no real illusion of objectivity in this part. I just think the design is whack and boring at the same time. Hard to accomplish, but I'll give Horikoshi credit. He did it. A lanky man wearing a suit who's actually super buff but has green and yellow hair, I just think it's whack. Like, there's no coordination. The only thing that makes sense is the suit, because it matches the serious part of his character, but whatever, let's get to the main point of this video. Death. Horikoshi does not know how to kill characters. I'm convinced. He's killed 2, technically 3, and neither of them hit, and I'm confident that it's a common consensus that no one got why those characters who died. I've looked. The common reaction I get to these deaths is this face. And I honestly don't blame the people because this death makes no sense. First things first, all the reasons I talked about in this video explains why his death doesn't hit. Except the design, which was me just being annoyingly judgmental as an artist who's most certainly inferior to Horikoshi. But back to death and how it fails, think about it. We had no time to connect to Nighteye as a character, to even worry about whether he would die or not. There was no reason to care about his character because we saw nothing of his character. It was all told to us in flashback in 5-second scenes, and he himself by the end, and his quirk was never used to foreshadow his death, despite it being a great idea that it could have been used constantly, with pieces like his death flashing before him every time he glanced down the timeline. Nighteye had no reason to die, as with his backstory, he would have been a perfect dual mentor for Midoriya alongside All Might. Think of this. Just imagine a well-paced arc where through Midoriya, Nighteye and All Might reconnect and raise Midoriya up to be the perfect vessel for One for All alongside Togata. Then, after multiple arcs, many reactions and important reveals to Nighteye's character growth and plenty of foreshadowing, he died. That'd be great. The death would hit. But no, what we got was Nighteye getting run through after no development, foreshadowing real interaction, not dying instantly and evoking nothing after stalling forever, to not die at the climax of the arc, but to die way later at the end in a bed. Then he got a 5-second funeral, had no lasting impact on our main character, and the only character that he did have massive impact on falls into obscurity due to the loss of his quirk. So I ask, what was the point? I've talked about this part of the overhaul arc a lot with other people, mainly because I'm always trying to look for the good in something that I personally find as bad. However, the best defense I've ever gotten for this death is subversion of expectations. However, that does not automatically make something good. I could post a video called Naruto vs. Meliodas, and it would just be me staring back at you for 10 minutes in straight silence. Does the fact that I subverted your expectations by wasting your time make that good? No, it doesn't. It's actually insulting. So killing a character unexpectedly, only to stall it for no reason, when that character could have been good as a useful tool for the main character to grow, does subvert expectations, but that does not make it good. Nightaye's death makes no sense in the narrative and out of it, and that's the sad thing. And, if I'm being honest with you, I had interest in Nighteye as a character when he first showed up. I have to admit it. He provided an interesting, rare link to the past, which in my opinion is the most interesting part of My Hero Academia. However, he simply fell through after a couple of chapters of existence, dying a worthless death while leaving no impact on the narrative, the reader, or even the main character. He was a waste of a character with so much untapped potential that fell to the wayside due to a lack of understanding and utilizing that potential. Nighteye could have been better, and I think that's the biggest failure there can ever be. Hey, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was rather negative, but hey, I needed to be honest with y'all. Regardless, thank you guys so much for watching, and please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and this is That Guy with a Pencil, writing off.